Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Rebekah Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan Elrom.
In our top story, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responded to a United Nations vote supporting the unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state, saying there will be no Palestinian state west of Jordan. Netanyahu warned this move would serve as a reward for the brutal massacre of more than 1,200 people in Israel on October 7, 2023. Senior Hamas leader Osama Hamdan praised the recent victory at the UN, where 157 members unilaterally recognized a Palestinian state. In an exclusive interview with Al Mayadeen News in Lebanon, Hamdan hailed the victory as the result of the Al-Aqsa flood genocidal attacks in Israel nearly 2 years ago. U.S. President Donald Trump addressed the United Nations General Assembly, accusing its members of encouraging continued conflict by recognizing a Palestinian state. He demanded the immediate release of all of the hostages held by Hamas in Gaza and said instead of giving in to Hamas's ransom demands, we should be united with those who want real peace.
Israelis overwhelmingly support U.S. President Donald Trump's plan to evacuate, rebuild, and redevelop the Gaza Strip. A survey conducted by the Israeli Coalition for Regional Security found that a whopping 78% of Israelis say they would back the initiative if it would end the war, return all of the hostages, disarm Hamas, and pave the way for the separation from the Palestinians. The first phase of this plan has already been a huge success. Hundreds of thousands of Gazans have reportedly fled the Hamas-controlled enclave. The IDF continues to close in on the remaining Hamas leaders in Gaza City, where the Iranian-backed terror group is believed to be holding the remaining 48 hostages.
President Trump has formally invited Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to the White House after the United Nations General Assembly in New York. This will be the two world leaders' fourth meeting since President Trump began his second term. The Secret Service has already increased security at the White House in anticipation of pro-Hamas protests and crowds demanding the arrest of the Israeli Prime Minister for supposed war crimes in Gaza.
Prime Minister Netanyahu is sounding the alarm over Egypt's egregious violations of the 1979 Camp David Accords. That treaty was sponsored and guaranteed by the United States. Netanyahu briefed U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on the situation during his recent visit to Jerusalem. According to Israeli intelligence sources, Egypt has extended the runways at its bases in the Sinai Desert to accommodate fighter jets. It also built underground bunkers that could be used to store missiles. Jerusalem has attempted to resolve these breaches through diplomacy, but Cairo has refused to provide a satisfactory answer for the Egyptian military buildup along Israel's southern border.
Dozens of people celebrating the high holiday of Rosh Hashana in Eilat last week were injured when the Houthi rebel army launched an explosive-laden drone on a popular tourist destination in the Red Sea port city. The low-flying projectile reportedly evaded 2 interception attempts before exploding near a crowded shopping mall, injuring 48 people. This comes just days after the Houthis claimed responsibility for a drone attack that caused an explosion at the entrance to a hotel in Eilat. The Houthis in Yemen have fired more than 90 ballistic missiles and dozens of explosive drones at Israel over the last 6 months, and Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz warned of devastating consequences for the Iranian proxy army. Katz said the Houthi terrorists refuse to learn from Iran, Lebanon, and Gaza, and they will learn the hard way.
Syrian leader Ahmed al-Sharaa says his regime is afraid of Israel and does not want conflict with the Jewish state. Sharaa led a jihadi army in the overthrow of Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad last December, prompting Israel to attack Assad's chemical weapon stockpiles and establish a buffer zone in the war-ravaged country. The new president is demanding that Israel withdraw from the area and cease targeting strikes on Islamic militias operating in southern Syria. U.S. Special Envoy for Syria Tom Barak confirmed that Damascus and Jerusalem were close to striking a de-escalation agreement that demands that Syria not move machinery or heavy equipment near the Israeli border.
The Israel Defense Forces confirmed they have moved a treasure trove of ancient Christian artifacts in Gaza to a safe location. IDF troops discovered a warehouse filled with ancient items as they were clearing a Hamas compound slated for destruction in Gaza City. The army contacted the owners of the facility and worked with the French Biblical Archaeology School in Jerusalem to safely remove the historical objects from the Gaza storeroom. The building housed over 180 meters of artifacts uncovered in excavations throughout Gaza.
The Trump administration has submitted a request seeking $6 billion in weapon sales to Israel. Leaders of the House Foreign Affairs Committee and the Senate Foreign Relations Committee must first okay the deal before sending it to Congress for final approval. The sale reportedly budgets $3.8 billion for Apache helicopters, $1.9 billion for infantry fighting vehicles, and $750 million for parts for armored personnel carriers.
Israel's Ministry of Defense has announced it has successfully completed trials of the Iron Beam defense system and is prepared to deploy it in the field. Rafael Advanced Defense Systems confirmed that this cutting-edge defense program will be called Eitan's Beam, in memory of Captain Eitan Oster, who was killed in battle in Lebanon. The laser dome has already proven its effectiveness against UAVs on the Lebanese border, but testing has also shown its ability to intercept rockets, missiles, and mortar shells. Eitan's Beam will cost just a few dollars per interception, compared to around $30,000 for each Iron Dome interceptor missile.
Israeli Tourism Minister Chaim Katz has made the Jewish state's first official visit to Tajikistan. Katz participated in the United Nations Tourism Investment Forum in the Central Asian nation. The Israeli minister met with Tajik leaders on the sidelines of the event and signed a memorandum of understanding for bilateral tourism between their countries. Tajikistan has held diplomatic ties with Israel since 1992, and this new agreement will strengthen relations between Jerusalem and Dushanbe. Katz welcomed the advancement, saying tourism provides a unique opportunity for international cooperation. The Minister of Tourism also confirmed that during the forum, he was warmly received when he met with representatives of several countries that do not hold official relations with Israel.
More than 100 foreign operatives, including dozens of female Israeli Mossad agents, infiltrated the Islamic Republic and were on the ground during the 12-day war. These assets provided critical intelligence and support to the IDF, and many of them destroyed missile launchers and air defenses before Israeli planes crossed into Iran. The mission to destroy Tehran's rogue nuclear program was the Mossad's largest and most complex mission to date. Experts believe that Tehran's atomic ambitions were crushed by precision Israeli and American strikes. The intelligence that made these strikes possible was gleaned by years of espionage inside the enemy state, coordinated with the Iranian resistance. While most of the details of the mission are still classified, the Jerusalem Post has confirmed that dozens of female agents risked their lives to destroy the Ayatollah's nuclear weapons program, destabilize the tyrannical regime, and eventually free the people of Iran.
In medical news, Israeli neuroscientists have developed a blood test to determine the effectiveness of antidepressant medications. Researchers hope the blood test will create a platform for the personalized treatment of mental disorders. This is especially promising in the field that heavily relies on the trial and error method for finding effective treatment. Dr. Talia Cohen-Solal, one of the senior developers for Israeli healthcare startup NeuroCare, explained that the guessing game of identifying the right drug for a patient with clinical depression can typically take between 12 and 18 months. She believes that NeuroCare's technology will bring that time down to just 2 months.
The Jewish people will begin the observance of the Day of Atonement this week. From sundown on Wednesday evening until after sunset on Thursday, Jews will fast and pray for forgiveness from God. Yom Kippur is the holiest day on the Jewish calendar, when the entire nation of Israel collectively afflicts their souls by refraining from food and water and stand together to pray for deliverance. The days leading up to Yom Kippur are known as the Days of Awe, where the Jewish people recite special slichot prayers and request forgiveness for any wrongdoing from others, so that by the Day of Atonement, they will be humble when they ask for forgiveness from God.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. We're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Ilan Greenfield. He's the owner of Gefen Publishing House. Ilan, thank you for being on the show.
Shalom, Josh. Very nice. Thank you for having me.
So you came out with this new book called October 7th. Tell us a little about it.
We came out with a book on October 7th because we thought that the war has to be documented. And Ziv Koren is one of Israel's best photographers. We've already published a few books by him in the past. And he went down actually on October 7th and started taking photos.
The idea of having photos of October 7th might be a hard sell for some people. People like having to relive that moment or see those terrible things. How do you do it in a way that makes it palatable for the public?
What we try to do with the book, we divided it into a few chapters. So much of the book is not really part of the horror part of the book. Most of the book deals with different parts of Israeli society from October 7th and for the next year and few months, i.e. deals with hostages. It deals with the families of the hostages and their combat to try and get the hostages back and freed from Hamas. It deals with all kinds of citizens in Israel who have actually turned to be amazing people to help with anything that they can do. And then we deal with different units of the army. So we try to make it much easier for someone to look that it's not a horror book. It has a few photos from October 7th itself, and most of the photos are afterwards. Like we take one family, a husband and a wife, and we follow them through their health care until they get married, et cetera, et cetera.
October 7th is obviously a very traumatic time in the history of the Jewish people and the history of the state of Israel. But since then, we've been seeing victory after victory after victory. On 7 fronts, 5 of them are pretty much in shambles. The other 2 seem to be on their way out also. Is that documented in the book?
Again, the book came out about 6 months ago, so it documents the different victorious things until then. Unfortunately, we don't have the Iran affair yet. Maybe in our next book it will appear. There's no question about it that Israel has gone through a tremendous change since October 7th. And we're now riding on the right wave, if one can call it. And hopefully will continue until total victory and total annihilation of Hamas and the other enemies on all the borders. We're very fortunate we have an administration today that's, I think, sees eye to eye with us that evil has to get out and the good part of the life of the world has to win.
One of the things that we see is the hand of God in the last year and a half. As we've fought, God's gone before the people of Israel and brought victory after victory. Is that message brought forth in the book as well?
I would say like this. First of all, I think there's no question in almost anybody's mind, even someone who's not a believer, that even if they didn't believe, there is someone up there who's taking care of everything, because there's no chance that a country small as ours, being attacked in such a way, being really on one of the lowest points we've been, suddenly coming forth and becoming like a lion and winning on every single front. I would say the godly part of it is not so much in the book. The photographer more or less tried to focus on the people themselves, on the families, on the injured, on the soldiers, etc. Meaning he didn't go into the, I would say, the belief system or that. We are planning to publish a book called Prophecy because we think that in the past 100 years, many of the prophecies written in the Bible have come true, and I think today we're at a climax.
Gefen Publishing is a premier publishing house in Israel. You've published hundreds of books, including my own, including some classics from decades ago. Why is October 7th a genre that you picked to work on specifically? This isn't someone else's book you're publishing. This is your book.
After the Holocaust, it took 20 or 30 years for the world, certainly for Jews, to realize that we have to document it, that we have to show the world what happened, because this should never happen again. I think today we realized that we can't wait 20 years. We have to go a day after, because number one, we have to show and explain who are these people, if one can call them people, who have committed atrocities that no human being should go under. And when I speak to people about the book or about October 7th, and they tell me they support the Hamas or Palestinian, I say, listen, how can you support people who, if they knew that you're a Christian, they knew that you're a Jew, they knew that you're not a Muslim, they want you dead. And we have to realize these people, they're not there to achieve anything good. They're there to destroy. They're there to kill. And when those terrorists came in, they came in with an intention of humiliating, of raping, of killing, of murdering, of burning. And I think it's very important for us as a nation, for us as human beings, and certainly for me as a publisher of Jewish books, to show where these people came from, what they wanted to do, and that, thank God, we will never let them do it, and we will always come out winning, because good has to win over evil.
Ilan, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
If I may, the one message is that we have to really always remember, good must prevail. The evil people, no matter where they are, have to be destroyed to the end. There's no negotiation. And as at the last conference I was in Washington was said, we want full victory for the Jewish people over evil.
Thank you, Ilan, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
And now, the truth from Zion.
The story of Iran's nuclear ambitions begins well before today's headlines. In 1957, Washington and Tehran signed a civil nuclear cooperation pact under the Atoms for Peace program. Iran joined the 1970 Non-Proliferation Treaty and built research facilities in Tehran. The German company Siemens started construction on the Bushehr reactors in the 1970s, but the 1979 Islamic Revolution halted the construction. War with Iraq and economic sanctions kept the project dormant, but not forever. In the 1980s, the new extreme Islamic regime quietly pivoted. The fanatical Muslim rulers restarted the nuclear program, this time with militarized intentions. Help came from abroad. In the early 1990s, China explored nuclear cooperation with Iran. Under U.S. pressure, Beijing canceled formal projects in 1997, but designs and know-how had already been shared. In 1995, Russia agreed to complete Bushehr on the Persian Gulf Coast, giving the regime a program it could call civilian. Then came the first big public reckoning. In 2002, Iranian dissidents exposed 2 undeclared facilities. Iran denied military intent but admitted the sites existed. In 2003, facing pressure from Europe's E3, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, Tehran signed the additional protocol and suspended enrichment, but only briefly. By 2006, enrichment was back on, and the UN Security Council issued a string of resolutions demanding suspension of nuclear activity and imposing sanctions. A shadow war between Iran and the West intensified. Between 2009 and 2010, the Stuxnet cyber operation damaged hundreds of Natanz centrifuges. In 2015, President Barack Obama ushered in the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal. Israel called it a disaster because it traded sweeping sanctions relief and the unfreezing of funds for temporary nuclear limits. In 2018, President Donald Trump called the agreement the worst deal in history. He withdrew from the accord and reimposed crushing sanctions, collapsing oil revenues, cutting off financiers, and restoring leverage that the agreement had surrendered. In 2018, a Mossad team removed a half-ton nuclear archive from a Tehran warehouse. The documents and design showed past weapons work. In November 2020, Moshe Fakhrizadeh, the architect of that program, was assassinated near Tehran. In April 2021, a sabotage blast cut power at Natanz and set the enrichment program back. By the spring of 2025, the UN's International Atomic Energy Agency numbers were alarming. Iran's stock of uranium enriched to 60%, a level with no civilian purpose, just one notch below weapons grade, had reached 408.6 kilograms. The agency determined it was enough to produce multiple atomic bombs if further enriched. That was the backdrop to the 12-day war. On June 13th, Israel attacked Iran's missile and nuclear facilities. In the days that followed, Israeli jets and military assets hit ballistic missile factories, storage and launch sites, command centers, senior Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps personnel, and critical logistics. Iran fired back at Israel with barrages of ballistic and cruise missiles, but Israel maintained the upper hand. Then, in the early hours of June 22nd, President Donald Trump ordered the United States to strike alongside Israel. B-2 stealth bombers and cruise missile platforms hit Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, the core of Iran's nuclear program. Trump said the facilities were completely and totally obliterated. The infrastructure was heavily damaged, and large parts of Iran's rogue nuclear program were forced offline. Israel has lived with this threat longer than anyone. It will not continue to do so.
If the regime in Iran gets nuclear weapons, the entire Western world will be under threat. Thank God Israel and the United States greatly damaged their nuclear capabilities and are determined to ensure that the world's top terror regime never gets the world's most dangerous weapons.
The danger persists, but so does Israel's advantage: unity, skill, and the willingness to act before it's too late. From Jerusalem, this is the truth from Zion. Up next, the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
Since Israel was brutally attacked by Hamas on October 7th of last year, the demand for mental health care in Israel has surged. This is especially true for those suffering with some form of post-traumatic stress. Israeli experts are estimating that 1 in 3 individuals impacted by the conflict will grapple with trauma symptoms for years to come.
Since 1980, the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem has been a voice of Christian support for Israel and connected the global church to the land of the Bible. Headquartered in Jerusalem, the ICEJ has taken action to stand with Israel by caring for Holocaust survivors, helping Jewish families return home to Israel, providing bomb shelters, fighting anti-Semitism around the world, and by inviting Christians to discover Israel for themselves.
Over the past year, the Christian Embassy has responded to this urgent need by supporting a variety of trauma therapy programs, most notably for emergency first responders and for children. One such initiative is a new recovery home we funded in the Galilee that serves as a haven for those experiencing acute trauma symptoms. The home is now self-supporting and uses creative therapy methods to help people find their balance in life more quickly. Elsewhere, we have sponsored therapeutic horseback riding sessions, as well as therapeutic group retreats for emergency and medical first response teams. The ICEJ recently bought 2 therapy horses, which service many recovering youths and have proven quite successful. A young boy named Erez was held hostage in Gaza for 50 days and managed to survive mentally by remembering his times riding his favorite horse. After his release, Erez was so glad to be back on a horse again. The ICEJ also sponsored special training courses for medical professionals dealing with severely injured patients and Jewish-Arab tensions in the workplace. We also helped to fund renovations of a new trauma recovery center in Jerusalem, as well as provided large protected rooms for group therapy sessions in a resilience center in the south of Israel. These are just some of the ways the Christian Embassy has been helping Israelis overcome the trauma of this difficult war.
After Hamas brutally attacked Israel on October the 7th, 2023, the ICEJ has been actively standing with Israel and her people through advocacy and urgently needed aid projects. Now is the time for Christians to turn their love for Israel and the Jewish people into real action as never before. Your donation will help deliver bomb shelters to at-risk areas, provide necessary supplies for first responders, support affected citizens with trauma care, and will eventually help rebuild these devastated communities. Visit ICEJUSA.tv to donate online or call 1-800-910-6355 and give your generous gift today.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Rebekah Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan Elrom, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.